Alright, so like I said, down at example 1, these two lines are now parallel. We still have the 8 angles. So you have the top 4 grouping and the bottom 4. We do have linear pairs in this figure. What would be an example of a linear pair in the figure? Noah?
1 and 2.
1 and 2, exactly. And what do we know about linear pairs?
They form at 180.
Yeah, they're supplementary, so they add up to 180. So that's kind of where that 180 comes from. If you look, do you see how we have angle 1? What's the corresponding angle to angle 1?
I can't see.
5.
5, right? Do you see how both angle 1 and 5 are acute angles in this figure? Yeah. So if they're both acute, or if it's like 2 and 6, 2 and 6 are also corresponding, where they are both obtuse, they're going to be congruent. So all of your acute angles are congruent to one another, and all of your obtuse angles are going to be congruent to each other. Is everybody with me so far?
And that would be the same with 2 and 6? Would it?
Yep, 2 and 6. So those are your obtuse ones, and they are going to be congruent as well. So the first fill-in where it says corresponding angles are, what do you suppose the fill-in is? Congruent, very good. Alright, so looking at example 1's figure, what would be an example of alternate interior angles? 4 and 6, very good. So 4 and 6, they are both obtuse, right? What's the other pair? 3 and 5, and what are 3 and 5? Acute, they're both acute, right? So do you think alternate interior angles are congruent or supplementary? They're congruent. So you see how these two are both obtuse, and then 3 and 5 are both acute? So they are going to be congruent as well. How about the alternate exterior angles? Pick out a pair and see if you can figure out if they are acute or not acute. Congruent or supplementary? Noah?
2 and 5.
Very good. 2
and 8.
2 and 8, very good. 2 and 8. Do you think they're congruent or supplementary based on what I just said? Congruent, right, because they're 2 and 8 are both obtuse, so they're going to be the same measure. And then 1 and 7 are alternate exterior, and they're both acute, so they're going to be congruent as well. So it's almost, if you can picture picking up this top group of 4 and put it on the bottom group of 4, they're going to line up. And what do we know about vertical angles?
Equal the same thing.
They equal the same thing. So if you were to pick this up and put it right here, we know our vertical angles are congruent. We know our linear pairs are supplementary. So that's another way to think of it. Pick it up, put it up. Consecutive same-side interior angles. What do you suppose is true about those?
4 and 5.
So 4 and 5. Are they congruent or supplementary? They're supplementary. Good. Can you guys tell that we have an acute and obtuse? So clearly they can't be equal, and the only other option is supplementary when we have this figure. How about consecutive same-side exterior angles?
Would be something that's 1 and 2.
It would be the same. So if we were to pick it up and put it on, you can see where the linear pairs would match up, making 180. So those are also going to be supplementary. What's that, Nathan? Nothing? Okay. It also says to recall we have vertical angles that are congruent. I already said that. Linear pairs that are supplementary. And if you think about vertical angles and linear pairs, that's how we're going to prove these theorems here in the next time or two. I think it gets into the next section before we start proving. Is everybody okay so far? Alright, what do you notice? Like if I look at angles 2 and angle 5, what do you know about angles 2 and 5 in this figure? They're not congruent, so what must they be?
Supplementary.
Yeah, so even if you have a pair of angles, this is not a name. There's no name for this angle pair. But I can tell that I have an obtuse and an acute, so I know that they're supplementary as well. So even though there's no title to them, they're still going to be supplementary. What's another example of an angle, two angles that aren't an official pair, but they're going to be supplementary?
Oh,
No, what?
4 and 7.
4 and 7, very good. They're not an angle pair, but you can tell you have an acute and an obtuse, so they would also be supplementary. That'll help when we're setting up the algebra. Any questions so far? Alright. It says identify the angle pairs congruent or supplementary and give your reasoning. So A, we have 3 and 5. It's saying to identify the angle pair as congruent or supplementary. Are they congruent or supplementary? They're congruent, very good. You can use the symbol for congruent. What type of angle pair do you have?
It's alternative interior.
Very good, alternate interior. I'm not going to do all these, we'll pick out just a few to do. How about 1 and 8?
1 and 8,
Supplementary, good. And then what type of angle pair?
Consecutive exterior.
Consecutive exterior, good.
Wait,
Who said wait? Yes, Kaden?
so we mean for identify congruent and give the reasoning. You mean the reasoning for like what it is, like an alternate interior, consecutive interior?
Yep, and that comes from these statements. Alright, let's do 2 and 6.
Congruent.
Congruent, and then what's the angle pair?
It's alternative exterior.
Try again. What
What
did you say?
Corresponding.
Corresponding. They're on the same side, but one's on the exterior, one's on the interior. It's actually corresponding.
That counts?
They're in the same position.
How I usually see it is like it goes past the numbers, past the line. It jumps forward.
There you go. That works.
That's kind of see how it corresponds.
Alright, let's do 5 and 6. 5, we're skipping down, do 5 and 6. That's letter G.
Almost like we lost when we were doing
Does that make sense?
this. It makes sense, like after like after
Linear pair.
They're a linear pair, good. So what do we know about them?
They're supplementary.
Very good. Alright, did we go over D, E, F, or H, or do we feel like we understand it? We can move on to some numbers.
What was that?
Yes.
Alright, they're supplementary and a linear pair. And P got cut off. There you go. If you look down at example 2, now we're going to put some angle measures in there. If I give you one angle measure, you can give the angle measure of all 8, or the 7 other ones.
Oh, goodness.
Alright, so in example 2, it says if the measure of angle 1 is 65 degrees. So again, I can give you one angle measure and then you can tell me the other ones. First, tell me what other angles would equal 65 degrees? So we're going to skip around. What other angles equal 65, Kaden?
I'm still trying to get an understanding of things. Going to, I just want to go back
Go
to
for it.
something like the F. Wouldn't that be a vertical?
3 and 7 up here,
Yeah. Well, yeah. 3.
or this F, which F?
Oh, I was looking at the wrong numbers.
Gotcha. Wait, skipped around.
Oh, I was looking at H 2 and 4. That's why. Wouldn't that be a vertical? I guess I'm
2
trying
and 4 are vertical, very good. So what do you know about those? Let's go back up here since he's asking. Vertical angles, and what do we know about them? They're congruent, right?
Right. Just want to understand.
That's fine, very good. Alright, so what I had asked about in example 2, what other angle measures would be 65? And Zach, what did you say?
7.
7, very good. So I know that this one is also 65 degrees. It also says to give your reasoning. What type of angle pair are 1 and 7? What did you say? They're not really vertical, because you
Alternate
have the group
exteriors.
before.
Yeah.
They're alternate exterior. What else would be equal to 65 degrees based on what we just talked about, Trevor?
5 and 3.
5 and 3, good. Let's start with 3. How do you know 3 would be 65 degrees?
It's very close to me.
Very good. Vertical. I'm going to go ahead and put to angle 1. We should put to angle 1 here as well. Because we might switch what angles we're comparing it to. Trevor, you also said 5 is 65 degrees. How do you know 5 is 65 degrees?
Also vertical. Sorry. Corresponding.
It's vertical from 7, or what did you say?
Corresponding.
Hey, you can say either one. I'm going to put vertical to angle 7. Or it's corresponding to angle 1. Either answer would be absolutely fine. You wouldn't have to put both. Is there any other angles that are 65 degrees? Alright, so I'm going to use our congruent angle marks here. You can see it kind of makes a zigzag pattern too. That will always happen. How are we going to figure out the measures of 2, 4, 6, and 8? Trevor.
Subtract 1.
Very good. They have to be supplementary, right? And we could start with just 1 and 2, a linear pair add up to 180. So we would do 180 and subtract 65, and what do we get? 180 minus 65. Very good. Alright, so that's angle 2. We could say it's a linear pair to angle 1. Actually, I should switch colors. Let me see it better.
Would that make 8 the same too?
8, very good. Why would 8 be 115?
It's the same thing, but on the opposite side.
What do we call that angle pair? You're right, but what do you call it?
Well, on the bottom.
Yeah, what is 2 and 8 to each other?
X.
They're exterior, and what word goes before exterior?
Alternate.
Very good. Alternate exterior to angle 2. Alright, what else would be 115? Go ahead.
6 and 4.
6 and 4, right. So if we start with 4,
It's vertical.
very good. Vertical. Angle 2. Angle 2.
6 is corresponding to angle 2.
Corresponding to angle 2. Good job. You can also see the blue kind of goes in a zigzag pattern. Alright, what questions might you have about examples 1 and 2? Are there any questions? Does that make sense to everybody?
Hold on. I just need to write some stuff down.
Just taking some notes.
That's good.